Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In regards to today's video, we're actually going to be checking out some of the coverage from Justin Trudeau testifying at the Foreign Interference Inquiry. Now, I want to start off with a clip from CTV and then we'll get into his.
I'll start with you because it's your reporting essentially that drove the fact that this inquiry is even taking place. This was the big moment of the inquiry that we had been anticipating, the testimony of the Prime Minister. What does stand out to you from what you heard? Like, what do you take from this testimony?
Well, one of the things that stands out is that the Prime Minister does not read briefings that are provided to him from our spy service. He relies on oral briefings. And as you know from the documents that we've seen tabled at the inquiry, they're quite detailed and quite sophisticated in what in laying out China's interference in the 2019 and 2020 election campaigns. The Prime Minister does not read this, and he also has a lot of skepticism about the intelligence provided by our spy service. He said a number of times that he's not sure about the reliability of some of the CSIS information.
And I was super surprised to hear him say this as well, because he always touts national security, how they have all these different programs that they created like CSIS, and yet he doesn't actually read any of the briefings or majority of the briefings that are given to him because he says he prefers them orally. Now, at one point after he answered his question and she started to move on to the next question, you could see him just sitting there and pondering about how this might sound. So he decided to dive in a little bit more and explain himself as to what he means by this.
Right. So I guess maybe my question wasn't clear. The content of this particular document, I'm not asking you about, except just to confirm that this is consistent with your recollection of when you were briefed, the January 2020 and the February 2021.
January 2020
was the memo that we looked at earlier.
Sorry, that was the David Morrison memo?
Right.
I never read the David Morrison memo to my recollection. I got briefed on the contents, which was basically that foreign interference was lower than expected and the elections were free and fair in 2019. Those were the top-level conclusions that I was briefed on within days or weeks of the end of the 2019 election. By the time we got around to January, it was good to have that report. I ended up reading the Judd report, I believe, was the full assessment of the work that the panel did during the 2019 election, but I did not read that. I did not receive that January 24th note because I'd already been briefed on its entire contents.
So to me, this sounds a little counterintuitive. He's admitting that he only got the spark notes for the briefing, which was top-level information of a free and fair election and low foreign interference, but then admits he took the time to read the longer briefing, which the shorter briefing would have been based off of anyway, so that doesn't make sense. But as she continues to question him, to me, she kind of makes a jab at him saying, "Oh, well, I guess this is why you do it orally." And he sits there for a solid 8, almost 10 seconds, just thinking about how this sounds before he gets involved again.
Okay.
And then the February 9th, 2021, what note was that? Was the phone brief that we spoke about earlier? Yes.
Right. I guess that goes back to your point about oral briefings are what really get to you, not necessarily the written ones. Okay, can we then pull up, Mr. Clerk, CAN 017673?
And let me just, I mean, I wouldn't want to give people the impression that briefings weren't something particularly, intelligence briefings we took very, very seriously.
Now, unfortunately, he's not being very convincing because earlier in the inquiry, she actually started this line of questioning by asking him about how he gets information. This section was in French. There will be a voiceover that you can listen to, but he basically admits that he only gets information on a FYI basis, as well as if it's really important, then he doesn't read briefings. He only relies on verbal or over the phone.
We'll move then to from the general landscape, which we now, I think, have a decent picture of, to some more precise questions having to do with this Commission's terms of reference. Et je vais commencer en français, monsieur, maintenant. Et on va parler d'un...
So now let's move on to a topic which is contained in your interview summary and your testimony. It has to do with the way that you receive information, intelligence information. Now, in your interview and previous testimony, it was said that the written documents were not necessarily a reflection of the information you received. And in fact, it's the verbal briefings that make up the main part of your briefings. Can you explain that to us? And can you generally explain to us the way you receive the information you need? I am constantly in receiving mode of all kinds of information from departments and advisors across government. Now, all of this information is presented in different ways, but despite the fact that I receive written information, weekly summaries or briefs on intelligence, which are often on an FYI basis, the only sure way to make me aware of a priority issue is not simply to give me a note, which I may or may not read or may not have time to read if I am traveling or if I'm particularly busy at that point. It is the best way to convey information to me is to receive a direct briefing from my national security advisor, an intelligence advisor, who would give me security updates, usually on several topics, during a same session. And this would happen on a regular basis. Sometimes it's once or twice a week, or even more often if necessary. Sometimes it's only 3 or 4 times a month. It all depends. But the only way to guarantee, to make sure that I receive the necessary information, is to give me an in-person briefing or over a secure line if necessary on any issue or priority issue.
Now, I don't know about you, but I find this to be extremely strange that he's so busy he can't read these briefings unless he's, I think he said, on his plane or something like that. Like, I get it, you're the prime minister, you're probably inundated with a lot of information, but it is a little bit concerning that our national security or security teams are giving you briefings, and unless they're verbally or in person saying it to you or over a secure line, you're most likely not going to read it. And this was a concern that was brought up by the individual in the CTV clip from the beginning.
That this is just intelligence, it's not evidence, but nobody is suggesting, by the way, that CISA's intelligence is evidence. So I think that, to me, struck me, is that this is a government that really doesn't want to hear this information from CISA's. It didn't want to hear it very clearly when CISA's went to them about Han Dong and China's operations in trying to get Mr. Dong elected or winning the nomination in 2019. They just did not accept that the intelligence that had been provided them was valid. And so they allowed Mr. Dong to win a nomination, and he went on to become the Liberal member of Parliament. And in terms of the 2021 election campaign, when CISA's numerous documents laid out how Chinese officials were mounting a disinformation campaign to defeat some conservative candidates, and information from CISA that they had recordings of Chinese diplomats saying that they felt that it would be better to have a Liberal minority government than the Conservatives. Again, he said, well, you know what, with that kind of stuff, I mean, it could be just diplomats bragging about this. So I'm kind of a little bit taken aback that this does not seem to be a government that takes seriously intelligence provided by our spy service.
And this is the sad state of our government. This guy just seems unaware of everything. And I mean, if he's talking about how he doesn't look at briefings, he doesn't get this, he doesn't get that, we can now understand why certain situations like the Nazi situation in the House of Commons happened, because he didn't get briefed on it, or he didn't actually read anything about the invitation or who he was inviting. But this is Trudeau and his open and transparent government, so I guess we have that. But as always, this is just my opinion. Let me know in the comment section below what you guys think about it. Let me know if you actually even watched this. It was a long ordeal of a video, and this was just a small subsection. But as always, let me know in the comment section below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and as always, I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks so much.